Hey Chris, Lindsay Hamilton here on the Rideau Canal, and I just wanted to say congratulations on the 30 Minutes Live with CDP podcast. Keep rocking it.
Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to 30 Minutes Live with CDP. Tonight I have Jake Jeffery from 980 News in London and 900 CHML in Hamilton, and co-host and founder of the Around the OHL with Mike Stubbs, Apple Podcast. And Jake's nice enough to come on tonight. So just bear with me and I'll have Jake on in 1 second. Guys, just give me 1 second. And I'll get Jake right on here. 1 second, guys. And yeah, just 1 second. Bear with me. And that's Jake. And we'll have him on in just a second. 1 second. There he is. Hey, Jake, how you doing?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good.
It's funny seeing that photo from, I guess it was a year and a half ago when the world was a little different. Hair's a little longer, beard's a little longer, but same old guy.
Yeah, so no, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. I'm a little bit early, but I like to be prepared.
Perfect.
And all
Yeah,
that. So, yeah, so I was going to say this StreamYard, I use them for live streaming. It's amazing. It makes your podcast look professional.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
It's just, there's so much to learn on it. So this is what I've been using. I started out basically with Instagram Live, and then my friend, the Philly sports guy, said, if you want to do a really better, more professional podcast, to go to StreamYard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yes. So how you doing today anyways?
I'm doing pretty good, actually. Yeah, no, things are so far so good. It was nice and sunny in London, so last couple of days have been like that anyways. So this time of year, it's hard to complain about that.
That's good. Yeah, not much news about the OHL today, unfortunately.
No, not really that people were kind of hoping for. It seems like every day people kind of wake up and hope there's something, but so far nothing official yet. And it's frustrating seeing some of the other leagues going, but that's the way it's been so far.
Yeah, because I know the Western Hockey League's got a plan in place. The Quebec Junior League has a plan in place. And then you got the AHL got a plan in place for all the Canadian teams. Do you think it's on the OHL's part, or do you think it's partly to do with the Ontario government?
I think I'd like to be a fly on the wall in that conversation. Realistically, it's likely a bit of both. I mean, it's a tough thing to follow through on and go about doing. There's a lot of pieces in place, so it's probably a little bit of both. I know the frustration with OHL fans is seeing, like you said, the WHL going, the QMJHL going, and what's a bit bizarre is it's sort of been three different approaches to it. You look at what they're doing out east in the Q, as they kind of tried to really go about their season in September and October. They had a little bit of delay, tried to go about it. They've had issues. They've had some delays. Some teams haven't played in over a month now, and they're just getting back at it. So, I mean, that plan hasn't been smooth by any means, but, I mean, there was a plan so that they were at least able to do something. And now you see the WHL, a bit of a different scenario because they held off just like the OHL, but they've been able to get back going a bit quicker, get approval from their provincial and state governments, and are really kicking things off now. So you look at Alberta's been approved already. Their teams are going, I think Friday, Saturday, their teams start playing, and then BC will be later this month. They get going. So, I mean, at West, there's going to be some sort of season that's going to get going here in March, which is nice to see.
Well, as for the Gold Storm, like I said, Nico Dawes is playing over in Germany professionally right now. Pavel Govalev signed a contract with the Marlies, and Keegan Stegenson as well. So the Storm are going to be without some key players if there is a season in, I think, beginning of April, if there is going to be something.
Well, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it's a situation where if the OHL has some sort of season, you're going to see guys called back from the AHL. You saw that at West, and you saw that in the Q, because some guys are getting the opportunity to play in the AHL and play with some taxi squads that would be too young to probably do that anyway. So they're getting a bit more of an opportunity, a bit longer look there. So, I mean, yeah, they would have to come back. Not the guys you mentioned, because they're a bit older, so they wouldn't have to come back. It's kind of up to their pro teams. Some guys you may see stick it out in Europe. Some guys, because the AHL, you mentioned earlier, has a plan in place. They've been going. They have their own little bubbles, their own little groupings. So you may see teams want to keep some of their older prospects overseas and stuff like that, or maybe bring them back. Depends on the OHL's plan, really.
So I was gonna say I did put on my little ticker here about your about the Around the OHL
Oh yeah.
podcast with Mike Stubbs and that on Apple. What day do you guys normally do them on?
We haven't had an episode basically since the summer. So once this all started, so we do a couple.
Okay.
We're looking at getting it back launched up as things are kind of going here. We have a couple ideas for some stuff. So that's kind of our game plan for that. But usually we would do it Wednesday, Thursdays to go into the weekend. So we're looking at getting that relaunched here kind of into March and April.
When did you start this up with Mike?
Gosh, it would have been something I started, I think maybe probably 6-7 years ago. Time, what is time nowadays? But so yeah, probably about 6-7 years ago, I started up my own. The radio station I was working with at the time, they were doing Peterborough Pete's broadcast, so they had asked me if I wanted to put. They knew I liked the OHL. They wanted to put something together for their intermissions, and I jumped at it. I went, yeah, sure. And then it kind of went from there. And then kind of as I've went on in my career, different radio stations, they've helped me nurture it and build it. And it's been really great where I am in 980 CFPL and 900 CHML Hamilton is with that, the Curious Cast. So they're able to pump up more through iTunes and Spotify and stuff like that. So that's been really helpful along the way. You get more help. And Mike joined me about 3 years ago now, and it's been great since then. I mean, Mike's a pro. He's been around for a long time for a reason, because he's great at what he does, and he's definitely made the show better. And I think we've thrived off of it. So we're excited to kind of get things going as the OHL sort of figures it out. We're figuring it out too.
I was going to say, and like myself being new to this industry and I'm trying to break in, I've been really lucky because I've had like guys like Mike Stubbs come on, Mike Farwell come on. I've got a few other guys. I'm hoping to get Larry Malott at some point. And it's like everybody in their professions, like some of these NFL guys, NHL or whatever, they've been really great with me. And it's like, wow. And it's like, it really makes you want to do a really good job on these podcasts and just keep working hard, because everybody's been so positive and encouraging what I'm trying to do.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I found it the exact same way when I first, was getting into and doing the exact same things. I'm looking to cover the OHL and stuff like that. So I reach out to guys like Mike, guys I grew up listening to, right? And they were great from day one. I mean, Mike was a guest on my podcast long before he was a co-host, and it's one of those things that they always made time for you. And I would talk about that with them, why, and stuff like that. Because someone did it to them, and they do it because they love it. They love the league. They love the people in the league. And it's something that, I really took to heart, and I really, really appreciate it. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for guys around the league like Stubbs and Farwell and Larry, even. He's been on my show as well. So, I mean, that the league's full of those guys. So that's what makes it so special.
And I got a taste of broadcasting, like I said, a couple years ago with the Guelph Nighthawks, the CBL, and I'm grateful because they threw me on a live camera, which I'd never done before, and I even got paid for it, like I told Mike Stubbs, and they really liked my work, and they said to go to Rogers TV, get some experience with them, and a year before the COVID struck, I was doing the Storm games, and everybody at Rogers was great because I'm 48 and I don't have any like journalism broadcasting, but they were so great. And Rogers TV, I have nothing but good things to say about them, and I can't wait to get back to doing the camera work for the Storms. And I'm hoping one day maybe I'll have an opportunity play-by-play or doing something like a TV host, maybe perhaps one day. Well,
and it's neat though, because being part of that broadcast, now just how many different aspects there are of it, right? I had a couple. I worked and with Rogers TV here in London for a couple of years, a little bit with the Knights broadcast, more for their Junior B broadcast with the London Nationals. And it's funny now, just being full circle, is I've coached in that league, and I'm a part of that league in a different aspect now. But it's sort of funny, the people you meet along the way that are really great. And Rogers is top of that list as well. They're really good for giving you opportunities and stuff like that. And like-minded people, right? Put them in the same room together, and special things happen.
Totally agree. And like I said, I just can't wait to get back with them. Like I said, there's still people, the fans, and this goes for me too. Even a couple of years ago, people don't realize how much work there is in a setup for a TV production or even a radio production before the game and after the game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then the guys that are the pros are the ones that make it seem like they're, there's they're just talking off their tongues, right? They don't have no preparation whatsoever. But you talk to anyone around the league, you look at the broadcasters. I mean, everyone has their own system in place. I know some that I've worked with that have sheets taped to the wall. You get there before the game. They're there 2.5 hours before the game, and they have their notes all written out. And then you have some that's all typed out, highlighted and whatnot. So everyone has their own little system, but preparation is very key. And it's one of those things you probably use about half of that preparation, but it's so nice to have that to fall back on, and whether you use it for that game or for games later on, it's just always nice to have. It gives you a better understanding of the game and the players in it. Yeah. It's probably one of the things I miss the most, to be honest with you, is game prep and preparing for games and stuff like that. So it kind of comes with the territory.
Yeah, one of the guys at my current job I work with, his name's Mark McKelvey, and he sometimes does the Owen Sound TAC games on Rogers TV and radio, and he's a really good guy, and I'm hoping, I guess Fred Wallace right now, once he retires at some point, I hope Mark McKelvey gets an opportunity, because he's always really well prepared, and he's even told me that, he said, if you're ever going to be on TV or radio, always make sure you're well prepared and do your homework.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I thought I was done with homework when I was out of school, but a little different when I'm researching hockey stats and going through sites like that than doing long division. But either way, yeah, homework's homework.
Okay. Just let me know if you're short on time or whatever. I just have a number of questions to ask you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah.
Okay. First one I was going to ask you, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, Jake?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm from London. I grew up north of London in the country. I grew up with 3 brothers, so I mean, we got ourselves into a fair bit of fun / trouble, depends the way you look at it. And I went to school here in London for broadcasting. I've been fortunate enough to kind of stay in southwestern Ontario. I know a lot of my friends and peers in the industry go to small towns throughout Canada, and it's been a good experience for them. I was lucky where my small town was Exeter. Just about half hour north of London. And so I was familiar with the area anyways, having played junior there. So that was a great fit for me. I went there, worked at My FM. They were really good and, giving me sort of an opportunity, throwing me into the wolves initially, if you will. And that's that small radio station experience you hear basically everyone in the industry talk about. You do a lot of things. I remember recording commercials there, doing stuff that was well beyond my training, which is more journalism and broadcasting. But it really shows you all the aspects of the industry, which is great because you sort of realize what you like, what you don't like, and it makes you appreciate it as you go on, some of the things that other people in your building do, because you're like, I had to do that, and that wasn't that much fun. So you really appreciate those things there. And from there, I went to Sarnia. I was there for about 3.5 years. That's when I really was able to sink my teeth into doing some Sting games, some broadcasts there with CHOK. I had a really, really good experience there. They sort of let me spread my wings, so to speak, sports-wise, and I did a lot with the local sporting community. The Point Edward Pacers lacrosse, I was able to do a lot of stuff there. Their junior B team, the Legionnaires in town. So they were really good at sort of allowing us. There was a couple of us there, really do what we liked, which is local sports. So that was awesome. And they let me build my Around the OHL podcast. And that really led to my opportunity now at 980 CFPL back in London, which was a nice kind of homecoming for me. I came back. A lot of my friends were here in school still, and my family's back this way. So yeah, it's been really great. And I've been back, I guess, just over 3 years now. And loving what I'm doing and being able to do some stuff with the Knights. So it's been great. I
was going to say, I'm assuming you went to Fanshawe College?
Yep, I went to Fanshawe. I was at Western for a little bit as well. Just a big experience in that post-secondary life. And I got from the great program there at Fanshawe. I mean, that's one thing you realize in the industry is that we were told there was going to be a lot of Fanshawe grads, and we weren't lied to, because there was a lot.
Oops, Jake, I think you froze. Oops. Okay, guys. Hey, sorry about that. I think Jake froze up here. 1 sec, guys. Whoops. Oh, technical difficulty. Here, just 1 sec, guys. I'm going to try to bring Jake back on. Hey, Jake, if you can still hear me, I'll try to get you back on. I think you froze. There you are. You're back. Yeah. Technical difficulty. Sometimes I've discovered that too with podcasts and all this. Sometimes technical difficulties happen too.
Well, and that's how it kind of goes. It says, you prepare and then the gods laugh, right? You prepare all they want, but they're going to throw a curveball at you. That's just the nature of the business.
Yes, I've learned that with Rogers TV.
Yeah.
Sometimes things unexpected happen during our broadcast, and you just got to roll with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. I was going to say, did you have Jim Van Horn as one of your teachers?
I did, yeah. And he was someone who was very helpful with me, and he was integral in helping me get that job in Sarnia, and it was a great sports opportunity for me. He knew that's what I really liked to do. Knowing him from the broadcast, I used to watch him on New PL and those companies that don't exist anymore when they're the London Knights games in the late 90s and early 2000s. So he's someone's opinion that I really looked to and appreciated, and early on, especially when I was getting out of school, it was something, is this really what I want to do? Is this a hobby, or is this something I really want to make a career out of? He was great for offering advice, and he linked me with Mike, and he was able to help me get in contact with him. And both those guys have been really good, really from the get-go. Always good to send an email to if you needed some advice. So I really appreciated my time at the school with him, and I know I'm not the only one who would say that about Jim Van Horn.
I was hoping maybe one day to get Jim to come on my podcast too, because like I said, I've always, even though I'm a Storm fan, I always like to listen to the Kitchener broadcast, the London broadcasts, and even though Mike Stubbs and Jim want the Knights to win, I always find they're always respectful of the other team too, and that's
absolutely. I wouldn't even say that they want to win. I think both guys just really like good hockey games, and it makes them really excited, and which makes the broadcast so good as well. And they know their stuff, and they have their fair share of stories, which is nice.
I was going to say, right now, the only two teams I know that have two guys doing all the games are on radio are London and Kitchener, I believe. I don't know. Like, I know Larry's now solo, and it's like, I don't know. Is that the future of the OHL where you're going to just have one guy do everything?
It might be initially, like especially if we come back to a little bit of a bubble scenario. He knows what that's going to look like from a broadcast scenario. Yeah, you see, there's sort of some different approaches around the league. You look at some, and it's like it's the team's media guy that is in charge of that. You especially see that with the three American teams. That's how they work structurally. You also see that with as we say, Marie Sudbury as well. I believe there's a handful around the league, and it works well because they're knowledgeable of the team. The team's usually pretty happy with what they have to say, and they usually ride solo, or they'll have a member of the local radio station sort of to try to bring that broadcast team together. So I, as someone who's in radio and someone who's been part of radio broadcast for almost a decade now, I think there's a big benefit to having two people. I've done junior B games by myself, and it's a lot of talking. It is a lot of talking. I mean, the guys that can do it well are so good. I mean, if you look at some of the stuff which Stubbs will do, he'll be broadcasting the game. Well, it's almost like you're at a concert and you can watch the band while also filming them in the video. He does that almost at these games. He's commentating this game while also getting video on his phone so he can put it on Twitter and Instagram, just because that's the nature of the business now. He's kind of a one-man show, and he's able to do that and not even miss a beat. So, I mean, there's a lot of these guys around the league. They're so multi-talented, so they are able to do more than one. But it is a lot of talking if you're by yourself.
Definitely, yeah, because I even brought that up to Mike. But he did make a point that the OHL games now, instead of 20, 30 years ago, the average game's about 2.5 hours. So the old days when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, some of these OHL games used to take 3.5 hours to play because there were so many penalties and so many fights and brawls and stuff. So Mike says nowadays it's not so bad for 2.5 hours compared to the old days.
No, and you can kind of prepare, because the longest you're going to get is the intermissions now that are 15, 17, depending on your rink. And some of them could be a little bit longer. But, I mean, if you're the sort of broadcast that's going to rely on one voice, there's usually some really solid intermission content that's either garnered by the play-by-play host pregame, or it's pre-produced entirely, from back in studio or something like that. So there's ways around it. There's definitely ways around it. I think we may look at an opportunity where you could see somebody in studio doing a bit of a half and half broadcast. I think you see that sometimes with some baseball broadcasts, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things do shake out from that point of view. But there's definitely a growing trend of teams having their own media guy.
And I know it's kind of sad too. I know it's a little off topic.
Mhm.
The Blue Jays, I guess last week announced they're not going to have radio guys anymore,
Yeah.
and I'm really disappointed with that because I know it's a business decision, but I grew up in the radio era of the '70s and '80s, and to me, I like TV guys. Don't get me wrong, but I think the radio guys are especially important, especially in baseball. And I would like to hope this isn't going to be the start of the new wave where everything's done through you know what I mean?
I
Through
second
TV.
that as well, and I'm in the same thought where I like radio because you sort of you paint your own picture a little bit. You can get lost in it a little bit. I grew up in the country where we didn't have Rogers, so I remember listening to Knights games around the radio when they were on their playoff runs and stuff like that. And that's exciting, man. That's
Mhm.
fun, and it made me want to do what I do because to be able to captivate people and to tell a story through radio, I think was great. So it's one of those things where the guys who are doing TV, they're very good at what they do,
Yeah.
and it's going to be fine until it isn't. I think it's going to be one of those things where you're listening to it. They're painting a picture. They're painting a picture. Oh, they just referenced a graphic. I'm lost a little bit. It loses a little bit, and then you're going to have that. That's the way it's going to be. But obviously, their decision was that their hope is it's not going to matter to as many people, and so we'll see if it does. But there's a lot of people I think who's in the same thought as you. It's a bummer, because baseball on the radio is awesome. Live sports on the radio is awesome. So hopefully, maybe they'll sort that out.
I'm hoping after this year they'll change their minds because like I said I like the new guy they took over for Jerry Howarth. I'm trying to think of his name again. He came from the Buffalo Bisons. I hate that when you know somebody and you just
Gosh, yeah, he was good too. He was really good.
Ben Wagner.
Yeah,
Ben Wagner.
Yeah.
And I had no problems with him at all. But like I said, hopefully Rogers in the future reconsiders the decision because to me, especially with baseball, to me, I think radio is just as important as TV is.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's like somebody's you're out working in the garage, you're out back doing some yard work or whatnot. You get on a Sunday afternoon in the summer, you can toss a baseball game on and sort of drift in and out. That definitely it would lose its luster a little bit. I think, right? Yeah.
Definitely. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, my next question I got for you, Jake, is did you have a mentor when you were in college and when you were first starting out in the field, in the industry?
Gosh, yeah, I've been pretty lucky. Like I kind of mentioned maybe a little bit earlier because there's been a lot of them where guys around the league have been so supportive. I know Jim was great as one of my teachers, someone getting me in the industry with Jim Van Horn, and Mike Stubbs was somebody I was sort of – when I was at Western, I was wondering whether, is that what I want to do or could I, do this broadcasting thing? And he was someone I reached out to and mentioned, some what he goes through in a day to day. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. And so he was great from the get go, always able to bounce some things off of. When I was in Sarnia, I was really fortunate. I was able to do some Sarnia Sting broadcasts for about half a season full time, just over half a season full time, and I worked with Patrick Drochet, a former OHLer, NHLer, a Sarnia Sting goalie, and he was really good because I was pretty young at that time, so we were kind of thrown into the fire a little bit, and he was really helpful with how some of the broadcast work. And then from there, I was able to work really, really closely with Lee Cunningham, who has been around this league for a long, long time. He did. I remember doing London Knights games on New PL with Jim. I think back in the late '90s, and he was very, very good at. And when I really realized that, wow, I thought he just sort of talked off the cuff, but he didn't. He was so prepared. There's a reason why he knows this league inside and out because he's up in the morning, he's doing his research and stuff like that. So he was someone I was able to learn a whole lot from, I think as well. And whether they're mentors or not per se, they may each sort of play a little bit different of a mentorship role, but they're definitely some solid guys that I was able to turn to at times and able to get some pretty good advice from. And I think I would still be able to turn to them. And I think the list is probably even longer than that. That's just some guys that really come to mind here as a late who've been, I think, really helpful and keeping me in my mind of what I want to do. And if ever I'm in doubt of what I want to do, they're usually good offering some advice.
Is Lee still doing play-by-play for the Saginaw Spirit?
No, he was doing those games in Saginaw, and then he has family from London, so he actually came back to Sarnia he has family in Sarnia, so he came back and is doing Sting games, I think the last 3 or 4 seasons, maybe 5 seasons now, because he did 2 seasons when I was in Sarnia, and I was able to be sort of his color guy and help and go on the road with them, and that's some stuff you learn as well, and you learn a lot from going on the road because you're out there and you're kind of almost on your own a little bit, and it's very helpful having guys like that around, that can kind of show you the ropes.
Yeah, and he has that voice too. Like I said, for many years I identified him with the London Knights on the TV set because you hear him, it's like, okay, the Knights are playing. It's like certain guys you identify them with the teams.
Well, it's funny too. Like that was, I guess, one of the eye-opening things about when I got into radio, because you walk down the hall with somebody and then you just hear them talking. You're like, wait a second, I know that voice, and you're okay, because some people have their radio voices, their normal voice. Some people turn it on and get really deep and have their announcer voice. But a guy like Mike Stubbs doesn't. A guy like Lee Cunningham doesn't. I would always joke with both those guys where, they sound the same whether they're calling a game in overtime or ordering a sub. It's the exact same. So it's kind of funny with those two guys. They just, that their passion comes out in their voices, and it's as natural as it gets.
Yeah, it's like the guy in Buffalo, Rick Jeffery. You listen to him, the Sabres are playing, and he gets really into it, and he's really that's what I love about the radio part of it.
Yeah, that passion comes through, and that's something maybe that's people may be a bit tougher that the pros are really, really good at is getting up for every broadcast. There's probably some Sundays during a long Buffalo Sabres season where Rick Jeffery would, okay, let's drag ourselves to the NHL rink. I got to do the thing, but like the pros are like, this is what I'm doing, and I'm pretty sure pretty quickly into that broadcast, you get excited, and those guys are able to put on a show every time. But those are the pros. It can be a long season sometimes, but you can tell the ones that are really excited and just like good hockey.
Yeah, one of the things Mike Farwell was telling me a couple weeks ago too, consistency too.
Yeah.
You got to be consistent because the audience, especially in Kitchener where he calls the games, they expect a certain level of standard for their broadcast. So Mike told me that's the one big thing too. Also consistency on all the broadcasts.
Yeah, and that's what you want. And maybe that's kind of what I'm sort of getting at a little bit is, there's those games where you may not feel particularly, maybe you didn't sleep well last night. Maybe, things aren't going great, but the second you turn on that mic, you're putting on a show. You're part of the show, so to speak, because there's people that turn on their radio and that's a part of their day, and you're a part of their day, and that's what makes this job so great is being that. And sometimes you forget it because you're in a room by yourself speaking into a microphone, or you're just speaking into a microphone watching a hockey game. It's easy to forget that there's faces and ears and people and humans on the other side of that radio, but it is, and it's awesome when you can do that and help people enjoy this game that is so great. It's something like Mike, you're with Farwell. He's someone who does it very well. Is that consistency, and he worked with Don Cameron all those years, and he is as good as they get. So I mean, that's another thing that makes this league so great is that you have sort of the next guys coming in and they teach the group, and then the next guys come in and you sort of pass that baton of passion, so to speak, and professionalism. And the league's lucky to have a bunch of these guys.
Totally agree. And like I said, being with Rogers TV as well, doing the camera operators before the games, I get to see some of these guys. And when I have some free time, I like to watch what they're doing, like how they set up. And I just like to see how they prepare before a broadcast.
Yeah, and that's a big thing too, because I mentioned a bit earlier. You probably you'll do this much preparation and you maybe use this much of it, but it's nice when there's those lulls in the game and you can have something to fall back on, because in radio especially, you can't bring up a replay. You can describe a play the best you want, but it's hard sometimes, and that can lose a listener a little bit. So you got to use those breaks in the game valuably, and that's where I think really there's a benefit of that duo, the tandem, and the good tandems around the league. They do it well. They can sort of feel when the other person has something to say and bring to the conversation, and that back and forth is something that when it's done so well, you don't even notice really, and it's something that I think is pretty special. It comes with the preparation. It comes with the experience together as well.
Yeah, so I'm just hoping, like I said, one day when things get better, I can get some training with Rogers TV and see how it goes. But like I said, one thing about doing a live broadcast, I get a little nervous sometimes when I'm doing the camera, even the camera work. But you know what? In a way, it's good too because it forces you to make sure you do a really good job. You want to take pride in what you're doing, and sometimes a little bit of nerves is okay too before a live broadcast.
Yeah, sometimes you hear people say, you should be worried once if you don't have any nerves, because maybe it suggests that you don't care as much anymore because you don't have that, a little bit of anxiety of whether you want to do a good job or not. Mind you, that could go a little too far and you can drive yourself crazy. And sometimes I'm guilty of that as well, wanting to, do a perfect broadcast and the rare, right? You make mistakes, you stumble on it, you may mess up a player's pronunciation, but it's all about moving on, and it's part of it sometimes. I think it humanizes us as broadcasters. I love it when a broadcaster will make a little bit of an error and have some fun with it. And that's a fun line to sort of play with a little bit during a broadcast. So I think that's all kind of part of it. And maybe it humanizes a little bit, and you can tell the ones that are enjoying what they're doing, because something like that usually doesn't mess up their day too much. But it's good to be hard on yourself a little bit, because that's how you get better. It's how you got to be, realistically critical, and it's very easy to get caught up in what you're doing and not want to improve.
Yeah, one of my friends, Pat Joseph, he's a color commentator for the National Lacrosse League's Halifax, I believe, Thunderbirds. And yeah, Pat's been my friend for about 2 years now, and he's been great. He's given me positive feedback, or just nothing negative, but just suggestions about how to get better and stuff like that. So I really appreciate any kind of feedback I get from Pat or anybody like yourself or Mike Farwell or Mike Stubbs and stuff like that, because I like to keep learning, and the only way you're going to learn is by getting feedback from others.
Yeah, that's absolutely how I go about it as well. I mean, early in my career, I still hate hearing my voice and hearing myself talk. And it took me a long time to have to be okay with that, because how you get better, I would want to do a sportscast or a newscast or a podcast and just, okay, it's done. I'm done with it. Let's move on to the next one. I don't want to hear myself talk. But then it's how you get better, because, you're okay, you know what, that transition didn't sound as good as I thought it did saying it. Let's find a way to make that a bit better. So it is important to be critical of yourself and sort of have that critical view a little bit. Again, almost like what we were just previously talking about, it can go too far though, right? And you can be overly critical, and that is tough, and it's something that I would definitely caution against. But it is good to have that and be open to criticism. There's so many people that think they know what they're doing, and you've never known less than when you think you know everything, is what I've always kind of brought myself up on. I've lucky where my parents were always, learn, like, what can you learn today? There's something maybe small, maybe large, but you can learn something today. And everyone you meet in this world is going to be able to teach you something, right?
Definitely.
So I think that's great. And you can tell when someone's giving you criticism for your benefit, and you can tell when someone just wants you to hear their complaint. So sometimes there's a bit of both. And I mean, being a radio, you definitely get a bit of both, but it's definitely, I've always appreciated when I get it.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm willing to learn, and I want to work hard. And like I said, when I do the Storm games as a camera operator, I love it because every game is something different, and it's like, and I take pride in it. And it's like with the podcast too. When I wake up in the morning, I know I'm doing a podcast later, like tonight. I look forward to it. I like to be prepared, or try to be prepared, and I really like talking to my guests, because like you said, you learn something every time you talk to a guest. Different person on here too.
It's almost like that game day feel, right? You have all day, you're throughout the day, you get those game day jitters and stuff like that. You get that excitement. But no, I absolutely know what you mean. And I, like many other people, you included, are just excited, hopefully, to have something come back so we can have that game day excitement again.
Definitely. So next question I got for you, Jake. Let's see, your first radio TV job and favorite sport that you played, follow, and covered.
Well, my first radio job would have been just out of school, and my first actual radio job was with My FM in Exeter. But I did a lot of stuff with Rogers TV prior to that, with a lot of nationals. I did London Majors, the Intercounty Baseball League team here. We had a Frontier League baseball team, the London Rippers, when they were here for about half a season. That was kind of cool, because that was pro ball. It was a lower level of pro ball, but a bit different with like the Intercounty Baseball League schedule. You play twice a week, 3 times a week. And the Frontier League, you played every day. It was sort of a major league schedule where a team comes in, plays a 3 or 4 game series, and then is out. So that was kind of cool, is that experience as well. I really enjoyed that. And it was my real first experience doing baseball broadcasts as opposed to hockey, which is really what I grew up playing. It was kind of my number one sport all my life. So that was an awesome experience, really digging into that sport deeper. I would still say hockey's my favorite to cover. It's the one I'm most comfortable with. I can dissect the best, I would say. I learned pretty quickly that a good broadcaster, a good announcer can call whatever they want. I mean, you know what I mean? If they're familiar and they do their preparation and they're able to, if it's something that's worth talking about, I think it's a good announcer can do a good job, whatever they want. So I've done basketball a little bit. I really enjoy that game. I've familiarized with it a bit more in the last couple of years, but I still say hockey is my go-to. It's the one I would like to cover the most. I kind of know the intricacies of the game the best, and probably can identify with the players maybe the best as well, having played the game, been around it for as long as I have. But I'm pretty open to other sports. I don't like being a one kind of sport guy a little bit, but I would say maybe if I had to list them, hockey, then baseball, and now basketball and soccer are definitely creeping up there the last little while.
Okay. Another question I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
What is the biggest adjustment from I know you've done radio, but have you done TV? Like the question I was going to ask you, biggest adjustment from doing radio to television over your career, or from what you've seen?
Yeah, maybe it just adds another layer of preparation and being ready. I mean, not that when I was doing a radio broadcast, you dress the same as if you're doing it on TV and radio. I mean, you're still like in a nicer suit, you're still dressed up, you're still professional. So it's not like just kind of on the radio, you're there in sweatpants and stuff like that. So I mean, I say all the preparation and stuff like that's the same. The biggest difference of the broadcast itself in general is in radio, it's more or less your show. I guess you'd have an operator back at the studio that will, okay, yeah, we need to play so many commercial breaks, or we need to get this in. Okay, you'll have this much left in commercial till we're back, and they kind of tell you a little bit, but it's sort of your show you're running. With Rogers and cable, it's much different. They have a much stricter schedule they have to stick to. They don't have much commercials to deal with some of that because it's all community broadcasting. I know what my experience with the Nationals was anyways. So there's not as much of that, but you have somebody constantly in your ear at all times. And I'm sure it was the same with you as a camera operator, telling you which shot's on right now, which shot's coming up. And my kind of job as the color commentator was talking back and forth with the producer in the truck. Oh yeah, let's clip that. Could I get a replay of that? That was a really good play. Let's bring that back in on the next stoppage and play and stuff. And radio, it's not that. Every now and then I'll nudge Mike or Lee when I was doing games with him, or you just kind of put your hand up and they know that, oh yeah, he wants to come in something later on. And if the game kind of moves on past your comment, you wave it off and just say, I don't worry about it, because sometimes you don't want to force it in later if the moment's gone. So that's probably the biggest difference, is that level of communication a little bit. You don't. I think it's something that really opened my eyes to a broadcast, is realizing that these guys, these professionals, are calling this game while having someone in their ear, and the whole sort of show of it. It's pretty spectacular. Everything goes into a television broadcast.
Oh yes, just the setup, the tear down. There's so much, and like I said, I still have a lot to learn. But the producer for Rogers TV in Guelph is Neil White, who's one of my friends on here. And like I said, I just try to pick his brain as much as I can and just listen to what he says. And I think I have so much respect now for producers, because they're like the quarterback or goaltender. Like I basically call them the quarterback of a TV production. Without the producers, you don't have a broadcast.
Well, and that's a great attitude to have, because a producer can make you look really good or really bad, right? So it's one of those things. Obviously, the good producers are going to make it good no matter what. But it's important to be on the same page with them. I mean, they can make you better and make you really good at your job, and they want to put you in a position to succeed. And I think if you're on the same wavelength, I was very lucky to have some really good producers when I was doing the games with the Nationals in London, and it's great because I'll be there now as a visiting team, and I get to see them and sort of and still talk to them and whatnot, and it's good because I've realized how much they were able to offer me during my time there, and they helped immensely. And there's times when you get a little bit lost in a broadcast, and then they're like, okay, let's bring it back and stuff like that, and it was really helpful as a young broadcaster having that experience.
Yeah, and like I said, everybody with the Rogers TV crew here in Guelph, they've been really great with me. A lot of them are mostly in their 20s or just out of school, but they treated me like one of their own. They didn't treat me like, hey, what's this old guy doing here? They treated me like part of the team, and that's why I'm like looking forward to going back there, because they make it like a team effort.
Yeah, I miss those that group of people you see. I know in London, the Budweiser Gardens on Friday, but it's the same when I was in Sarnia. Every Friday, you get look forward to seeing same group of people and some familiar faces, whether it be scouts or visiting media kind of coming in. I miss that week to weekness of the OHL season that we didn't get this year. So I'm definitely hoping to get back into that at some point.
Definitely. Okay, another question I got for you. Favorite athlete or athletes you've interviewed over the years in your career so far?
Oh man, I've been pretty lucky. I'm certainly going to be able to probably forget one. A couple of the memorable ones for me, like I was able to interview Connor McDavid when he was like 16, 17. He was like maybe my third interview on the OHL podcast.
Wow.
One of those things, I was starting it out. I just reached out to the Erie Otters media guy. Any chance I could get Connor McDavid on the podcast? Yeah, sure. Like, absolutely. I'm like, you don't know my podcast. At that point, it was on like SoundCloud, and I wasn't figuring it out. So that was kind of one of those like cool moments. I've met some really cool people in Sarnia, especially whether they were current or former players that were able to offer some pretty good insight. I mean, Jacob Chikrin was a first overall pick when I was there. That was fun to see him go through and then go into Arizona and speaking to him as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old, and seeing him grow up. He was relatively mature as a 16-year-old, but that was fun to see. Some of the other ones that they're enjoyable too, are some of the ones that like maybe aren't even NHL stars, and they're just fun guys and fun people to talk to. I had an enjoyable experience shooting some car commercials with the Knights, and just like I'm shooting the shirt with some of the guys while we're in a car and driving around the city and stuff like that. So some of that stuff I find is pretty fun. And Sarnia, actually, they have an Olympian, Derek Drew, and he was fun to talk to because he was about like 5, 6, 7 inches taller than I was. He's a high jumper, so he was quite tall, so he probably could high jump me. So that was sort of a fun dynamic of that interview. But yeah, I've been so fortunate. I mean, I'm a big fan of local sports. Obviously, the athletes that make it to the NHL and the Olympics and stuff like that is such a small aspect of that. It really I like talking to the guys that, worked hard their senior year and earned a scholarship somewhere. And they're talking about their first year away at school and stuff like that. Like that's what I think is great. And you can find those little sports stories in the games. Those are the fun and conversations. I think that's what keeps me doing what I'm doing is those talks and seeing how excited the parents and their friends and their family get. That's, I think, kind of what keeps me ticking.
Okay. I was going to ask you the next question. What's it like working in your hometown of London?
Pretty awesome. I mean, I grew up listening to a lot of the voices that, I mean, like F96, they're a brother station of us. So they're just down the hall. There's voices on that radio station, I would listen to on the way to school in the morning. Mike Stubbs is a guy I grew up listening to Knights games, his show as well. So these are all kind of, it's a bit surreal having that, like obviously it's one of those things. It's kind of funny because they're all humans, right? We're all humans. It's we just talking to a microphone for a living, but it's sort of, it really shows, I guess, that magic of radio, especially when you're younger, thinking that there's this imagination, you hear somebody and you picture, oh my God, this person's voice is so deep. They must be like 7 feet tall, big old beard and stuff like that. And you see them and they're just not. So it's funny when that happens. I used to get that a lot, especially earlier in my career. When I was in Exeter, I would do a lot of events in the community, and I'd be out there and they're like, I thought you were a 45-year-old man and I'm there 22, right? And I'm like, thank you. I think, that's good, I guess. But so I think that's kind of funny is having that experience back in London and working with those people on day to day. And there's a reason why people are in the industry for as long as some of these people are, because they're so good at what they do. And they really make the station better on a day-to-day basis. And I'm fortunate to have a good group of that in London. So that's all been, a lot of fun, seeing people that I interacted with on Twitter and whatnot when I was in Sarnia or in Exeter, and, now being coworkers. And we have a really good group there. It's been weird the last year because we haven't all been there, and we're the type of newsroom and radio station, we all get together and we all hang out, we we have gatherings, we get together for birthday parties and stuff like that. So that's been weird not having that camaraderie, and this year you can duplicate that all you want over a Teams chat, but it's just not the same, so that'll be great when things get back to a bit normal. But I've really enjoyed the experience here. I've been pretty fortunate actually to work in some pretty awesome newsrooms. In Sarnia, I was there for 3.5 years, and that was a tough newsroom to leave. There were some really good people there, and I learned a lot from. But it's makes it a little bit easier when you come to a really, really good group of people as well, that you're like, oh yeah, okay, you know what? There's a lot of good people in this industry, and they help make you better at what you do on a daily basis, and that is so helpful because like anything you do, it's easy to get complacent and not want to get better. But when you're surrounded by talented people who are getting better and want you to get better, it makes you want to do so, and it's nice being a part of that group.
Well, if I'm lucky enough to make it in this industry, I'm gonna what's that term I was gonna use? Pay it forward. If I'm lucky enough to make it successful in this, I'm not gonna forget where I came from. And I was always brought up to be humble and stay hungry, not food wise, but always be humble about how successful you are, and always stay hungry to keep learning and wanting to get better every day.
Oh, absolutely. Because I know in this industry, especially, it's something you see all the time. There's people you think that are untouchable that, don't have jobs this week they do, next week they don't. Right. So it's one of those things where if you aren't humble, this industry is going to humble you awfully quickly. And it's nice to kind of get a head start on that mentally. And, it's when it comes down to it, that's what I always say. People think sometimes that, what you do is so cool. It's great. Honestly, I sit there and talk about talented people. And I just try to tell stories. And if you like listening to those stories, great. If you don't, that's unfortunate. But I'm going to tell them regardless. So it's just nice being able to do that. The people that I talk about are the talented ones. It's just sort of I'm just that middleman to painting the picture.
Yeah. Well, like you said, so far, everybody I've met, I've only been doing the podcast 10 months, and I think I've only been interviewing people the last 3 months, 4 months, but even the ones from ESPN that have come on, Freddie Coleman, Christine Lacey, they've been so great. Everybody that has come on. And one of the keys of what I do is I tell people what I'm about and what I'm doing, and I don't push myself and I don't bug people, and I let them come back and they find me, and that's how we hook up.
No, that's because most people, especially at ESPN and stuff like that, is the reality of the sports world is they're not likely doing one job. They're likely doing several covering different teams, and it's busy life right now in general, not just professionally for people. So I think that's appreciative. Is sometimes you can't get back to everybody who reaches out to you about something in a timely fashion, and it's probably appreciative from their point of view that you had that patience.
Yeah, and if somebody turns you down, you don't take it personal. You just keep plugging away. You keep working away, and I every week I try to find 1 or 2 guests to come on my shows.
That was a big eye opener for me when I started around the OHL as well. And I mentioned a bit with McDavid's story, but I was able to have some pretty bigger name guests, especially early, and because you ask, and then all they can do is say no. And so at that point, you're like, do you mind getting this guy? And if they're like, no, he's not available this week, he's in school, then you go to the next guy. Who can I get? And most media guys around the league is they want to spread the word of the league. They want their players' names to get out there, right? They're not going to deny these players media opportunities unless in certain situations they're maybe protecting a guy, which definitely is the case. But more often than not, if it's just a casual podcast conversation, usually you send them a couple ideas like, hey, I want to have this chat. I think this would be a fun thing to talk to this guy about. I understand he plays he grew up playing hockey with 2 other guys in this league, and you can kind of sort of share your story with the media guy, what sort of angle you want to talk with. That definitely helps, and they want to tell those stories, and there's some really good media people around the league that sort of give you some nice little tidbits. But what, actually, that's good, but ask them about this because they're actually really funny, and this is a good story. You'll ask them what they like for breakfast. You'll never guess what they eat. So they're really good at like that and humanizing these athletes. And I'm a big believer in thinking that hockey players should have a personality, and I think that the league is starting. And hockey culture is starting to get that point where it's good for these, players to like different things and like different avenues of culture and whatnot. So I think it's great when I get an opportunity to talk to some of these guys about, and you can hear in their voice when you ask them a question, they're like, oh, yeah, this is fun to talk about. And so the media around the league is really good at opening up those sort of opportunities.
Definitely. And I've actually made a few friendships out of this and connections too. And that's what even Mike Stubbs and Mike Farwell were talking too. You want to make connections, contacts.
Yeah, and it's sometimes like that expression almost. It sounds sort of performative sometimes a little bit. You're just kind of meeting people that like junior hockey because you being around the golf games and stuff like that. You know the people that just love this league. They love this sport and stuff like that. And it's not like you're out there collecting business cards and be like, oh, that conversation is gonna come back and help me a couple years down the road. You're just friendly, meeting like-minded, friendly people, and that comes out in the conversation, and then they remember that and they want to have a conversation with you later. And yeah, that person was fun. That was great. Let's do that again. So it's nice that the league's so full of those guys. Yeah,
definitely, totally agree with you. And like I said, Jake, I met you through Mike Stubbs, and I really enjoy, like I said, talking to you on social media and getting to know you and stuff like that.
Well, it's great. I was happy to be able to jump on the show here, Chris. This is awesome.
Are you okay for a few more questions?
Yeah, sure. Hit me up. I know I got an early wake up there tomorrow, but I can hang around for a couple more for sure.
Okay. All right. What's the most memorable London Knights team in your opinion? I think I know what the answer is, but I wanted to ask you this anyways.
Okay. I'll give you two. And they're very, very different. I like that team in the late 90s. I think it was 97. They only won 3 games. That was fun. Because my cousins had season tickets at the old Ice House, so we went to a lot of games. We were at Old for that playoff run with the upset Plymouth. They had this big Cinderella story, Gene Strello and net. That was fun. I remember going to that Ice House. It was crazy. It was crazy. And then I was fortunate enough to have my parents got season tickets the year the Knights hosted the Memorial Cup. Thankfully, when they had that stacked team with Perry and Trepp and stuff like that. So that was super memorable because it was really the first time that I got to go to basically every game. I knew all the guys, and talk about a team to have that opportunity for. We ended up having pretty good seats as well. So we watched that run, watched them through the playoffs, got to see them beat Sidney Crosby, Shea Weber, a group of future NHLers. So that whole year was pretty special. I mean, there's been a lot of pretty special years in London, but I'd say those two were probably the ones that stick out for me. And it's almost like the two complete polar opposites in junior hockey. You have a team that won 3 games. You have a team that is arguably the best team ever in the CHL, and both of them memorable for different reasons.
Well, and like I said, the franchise really turned around. I compare the Knights to sort of like the New England Patriots. The day the Patriots were bought by Robert Kraft, and then the day the Knights were taken over by the Hunter brothers is when those franchises turn around completely.
Yeah, and then that's probably fair. And you look just as night and day with the setup they have in downtown London, what Budweiser Gardens, John Labatt Center at the time has done for it. It's pretty impressive from where things were to where they are now.
I was gonna say, and the team in golf has been pretty good too. We've been to the Storm have been to 6 Memorial Cups since they've been in the league since '91, and they should have won a couple Memorial Cups. But I'll tell you this, it's bloody hard to win that Memorial Cup.
It is, and that's one thing you pick up from covering those things is sometimes the best team doesn't win those tournaments. I mean, you look at when the tournament was in London and Guelph lost to Edmonton. That's a perfect example of that. You play that game 10 times, Guelph wins 9 of them likely. I saw it when I covered the Windsor Spitfires when they hosted and beat Erie. Erie was great. They walked through that tournament, had a stacked team, DeBrincat, Strome. They were studs, and Windsor hadn't played in over a month because they had an early exit and still won that tournament. And that's something covering from Sarnia because Trevor Letowski has those Sarnia ties. That was a real fun experience for me, just covering that and getting that experience. But you really get a feel for it. It's a disappointing way to end a good season. Sometimes, you win a league championship and lose in the Memorial Cup can be a tough initial pill to swallow. But talk about a roller coaster of emotions in May for some of these guys. Yeah,
definitely. I'm just going to ask you one more question because I'm going to let you go. But do you think you might be able to come back on my podcast in the future and we'll talk a little bit more about the Greater Ontario Junior Hockey League that you're involved with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can come and talk about a bunch of different things, but absolutely, yeah. I'm the role there with the Strathroy Rockets. I wear a couple different hats, so I'm happy to come on and chat about whatever hat you want.
Okay. Last question for tonight. What's it like being involved with the Strathroy Rockets as a assistant GM?
It's pretty cool. It's something that I really enjoy doing, and it's being around the sport. Like I really wanted to get. I played it all my life. I got away from being involved in teams as I was working on my broadcasting career, and so about 5-6 years ago, I missed that side of things. Working with a team, working towards a common goal. So I wanted to get involved with teams in the GOJHL, and I did so both as a coach and behind the scenes. And I joined Strathroy. This would have be our third year. And spent a year behind the bench, both years as assistant GM as well. And it's been a lot of fun. That's a community that loves the Rockets. And we had a hometown hockey game, I guess it would have been fall of 2019. That was a lot of fun when the Rockets are winning games at West Middlesex Arena. Can be a whole lot of fun on a Saturday night, which I think was definitely part of the bummer with everything that happened. I mean, we were hoping to have a really good hockey team this year, and obviously the world went a different way, and that wasn't able to happen in how we wanted it to. But we're excited for when things do get back to some sort of normal. And there's people in Strathroy looking for something to do on a Saturday night. They know where to go for some fun.
I'm definitely in the future once things get back to somewhat normal, I hope. I'm definitely going to have to check out a Greater Ontario Junior Hockey League game. I know we got a team in Cambridge, you got one in Kitchener, you got the London Nationals, then of course your team. So I'm definitely going to have to check out your league and come to a few games.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool little halfway league, sort of between their AAA and OHL, and we'll have sent some prospects through and on to other junior leagues as well. So it's a kind of a good stopgap for a lot of prospects.
Okay, and I'm going to let you go shortly. I put on the website if people want to check out the Go Hockey League, www.gojhl.ca.
Awesome. Yeah.
And you got 26 teams in that league right now, I believe.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of last count where we're at. So there's 3 different conferences. So we're in a loop that sort of covers London, Sarnia, Windsor, and then you have the Kitchener Midwest division that goes Kitchener, Cambridge, up through Listowel and stuff like that. And then you have the Golden Horseshoe down in St. Catharines, Welland, Thorold area and stuff like that. So and then the championship of each group plays in the Sutherland Cup, which is we talked about the Memorial Cup being a tough one to win. The Sutherland Cup, I would say, is right up there as well. I mean, it's one of those things that it's a long road to even get there, and the teams that are able to lift that trophy at the end of the day are few and far between.
Okay. Well, like I said, I got to get up early too, and I'm going to let you go. But Jake, I want to say thank you so much for coming on 30 Minutes Live with CDP tonight.
Oh, absolutely. No, I appreciate the invite.
And hopefully you can come back on again in the future, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Go Junior Hockey League. Because like I said,
and hopefully there's some actual hockey we can talk about too, Chris.
Yeah, crossing my fingers that there'll be at least a 24 game season. But Jake, I just want to say thank you for coming on, and hopefully we'll talk to you again in the future, and we'll do some more about the Junior Hockey League.
Absolutely. Be in touch, Chris.
Okay, you too. Have a good night, Jake. Thank you so much. Good night. Thank you. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching 30 Minutes Live with CDP tonight. I want to say thank you to Jake Jeffery from 980 News in London and 900 CHML in London. And he is the founder and co-host of Around the OHL with Mike Stubbs, which is on Apple Podcasts as well. And they usually do it twice a week when there's an OHL season. So anyways, guys, like I said, I want to say thank you so much for watching 30 Minutes Live with CDP. I hope you guys enjoyed the interview with Jake Jeffery. I'm going to have him back on in the future, and we're going to talk a little more about the Greater Ontario Junior Hockey League as well, which he's the assistant GM of the Strathroy Rockets. So anyways, I'll just do some comments. Hi, Mark. Thanks for coming on, buddy. Let's see, Mark. Great show tonight. I really missed watching the OHL play. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. And Guelph used to have a Go Hockey Team League. Yes, they did, and then they moved to Cambridge, Mark. So, yeah, I believe they're now the Cambridge Redhawks. But that's a league I need to pay a little more attention to and follow. So, anyways, guys, Mark, thank you for coming on as well. I really appreciate everybody watching now or later on YouTube, Twitter, and here on my Facebook page. So anyways, guys, again, thank you, Jake Jeffery, for your time tonight. I enjoyed talking to you. And guys, we'll talk to you guys Friday, as I have a double header, Friday at 2:30 and then Friday at 7:30. So anyways, guys, I'm going to call it a night, but check me out shortly. And let's see, just one sec, guys. Okay, one sec, guys. And we're just gonna one sec. Okay, guys. Yep, 30 minutes live with CDP. I've got a double header this Friday, March 5th at 2:30 with Lisa Drew from 570 News in Kitchener. She's a editor-in-chief and radio personality from that station. And then at 7:30, I'm going to have Artie Cleary from WIFI 1460 AM in Burlington, New Jersey. And he's going to talk to me about the Artie Clear show that he does every Thursday from 5 to 7 on that station as well. So, guys, I'm going to call it a good night, but we'll see you guys Friday at 2:30 Eastern Time with Lisa Drew. Okay, thanks again for watching. Have a good night, guys.